Inflation, your worst enemy. It steals your money every day and reduces the value of your work. But the worst part of the whole thing is that most people have no idea that this is happening. In this video, I'll tell you what inflation actually is, why it's a threat to us, and how to fight back. So sit back and let's get started. Number 1. What is inflation? Before I tell you why inflation is a threat to society, let's look at what inflation actually is. The precise definition of inflation is that it is the depreciation of the real value of a given currency against goods and services. So it's basically price increases and price rises. It means you buy less for $1 than you did, say, a month ago. Or the same thing you used to buy for $10 will now cost $11. That's what inflation is. Number 2. How it is formed. You may be wondering where inflation comes from, because it doesn't just appear. The causes of inflation are complex and involve many factors, so I will try to simplify it as much as possible. One of the causes is the growth of the amount of money in the national economy. This increases demand and therefore prices. That is, inflation occurs when there is too much money in circulation in a given country. When people have a lot of money, they spend more, so there is more demand for goods. When demand is high so that sellers can still make a decent profit, they raise the prices of goods and thus create an equilibrium in the market. If you don't understand how supply and demand works, watch my video on supply and demand, link top right and in the description. In order to keep inflation at least somewhat under control, the value of inflation is monitored by national banks. They control inflation by raising and lowering interest rates. By raising interest rates, they reduce demand and therefore inflation. By lowering interest rates, they increase demand and thus encourage inflation. Number 3. Why inflation is a threat. Inflation is a threat because it slowly robs you of your money. When you leave your money lying around, its value gets smaller and smaller. Most people don't even notice because they don't see this risk directly. So every year you lose a certain amount of your money. I'm not telling you this to make you panic that you're going to get poorer, but to let you know that there is such a thing. Inflation isn't so high that it'll ruin you completely. You can Google the current inflation rate and see what percentage the currency has lost in value per year. It will only be in small units of percentages. So what are you supposed to do? I'll tell you now. Number 4. How to fight inflation. Fighting inflation is not that difficult, you just need to know how to do it. By using some of my tips, you can reduce how much inflation takes from you. But be warned that this doesn't have to be the case and that if you use these financial tips it is at your own risk. If you've been listening well, you know that inflation is the weakening of currency, so money, against goods and services. So it is only about money and not about the things that money can buy. So my tip is to buy something that doesn't lose its monetary value so quickly. This tip is related to investing. A lot of people will buy some metal like gold or silver, for example. You can also buy another commodity like corn or oil, but that requires a little more knowledge of investing. Real estate is also popular, but you probably don't have or don't want to spend money on any real estate to fight inflation. But the principle here is that you buy something with money that doesn't lose that value as quickly. But what are you supposed to do if you don't want to put your money in gold or something else and want to choose a less risky solution? You can still defend against inflation. I suggest you put your money in a savings account or a time deposit. The interest on these accounts may not be staggeringly high, but you can reduce the percentage of inflation related to that money with it. But it depends on the state you are in, because some places have quite good interest rates and others have almost no interest at all. So research what it's like in your country and see if it's worth it. You can find out if it's worth it by looking at the interest rate, the cost of maintaining the account, and the inflation rate. So if inflation is 6% and the interest on a savings account is 0.01%, it probably won't be much of a bargain. Number 5. Deflation. A bonus piece of information is that there is the opposite of inflation. It is called deflation and it is the literal opposite of inflation, so, an increase in real currency relative to goods and services. That is, everything gets cheaper, the currency appreciates in value. So you can buy more for $1 than you could a month ago. Unfortunately for us, deflation doesn't happen very often, and if it ever does, most people don't notice it because it's in the form of a reduction in the inflation rate. But it's good to know that there is such a thing. I hope you have learned something new about inflation and that you understand at least a little bit about how it works. If something wasn't clear to you or you want to know more about something, write in the comments. This video was as short as possible because I understand value of your time and want you to have most information in a less time. Don't forget to also give a like to reward me for working on this video and subscribe so you don't miss any of the other videos. Thanks for watching and see you next time.